Welcome to this episode of Video Gaming with the Mad Conservative. As you can see, I picked up some new hardware about 6 months ago, that being the Galloping Ghost Arcade Gamer of the Year title. I've wanted to do a podcast on it for quite a while, but appear on the Galloping Ghost podcast to talk about this. Unfortunately, Doc Mac, Pete Hahn, Tommy Waffles have not been able to do a new podcast in months. I was supposed to do one on my own, but the weeks kept slipping by me with other things taking my attention, so I needed to hurry up and get this out there as we are at the halfway mark with 6 months to go. Quick review. I previously won the 1991 Nintendo Campus Challenge Championship back 30 years ago. That anniversary was on January the 4th. And in August 2020, I won the T20 tournament, becoming the only person not named Justin Vithel, aka Zerst, who's won one. Last year, I became the only person who has also won the T20 side tournament apart from the main tournament. I've also held the hardcore title many times, I'm guessing between 20 and 30 times. With the Game of the Year title, that puts me in an exclusive club of gamers who have won 3 unique titles at GGA. The club of 4 different titles consists of only one man, James White, aka Jibba Slice, for now. So let's begin the story of the campaign. It shall loom large on the minds of many for years that COVID ruined everything, shut down places for months, and arcades no exception. I most definitely was not happy about being cooped up at home because the government was in total panic mode. And I've made no secret, I have been on the opposite side of everything that's been said about COVID by government officials and epidemiologists. After doing most everything wrong throughout the pandemic, I should have gotten myself killed many times over despite all criticism and gaslighting against me for dissenting. Guess what? Don't care. I decided a long time ago I will not surrender control of my life to fear of a virus. I will not back down on that under any circumstances. Some people didn't like that and absolutely hated me for being so vocal against it. Now I could spend a lot of time ranting about all the missteps with the government handling COVID, but I will go here. The last April Fool's Day, I put out a satire video as an April Fool's prank. An old Konami game, Lethal Enforcers 2, featured villains who wore masks over their nose and mouths. When that was unveiled as a Monday mystery game, I got inspired to create this bit of satire, where an alleged re-release was made where the bad guys, besides shooting at you, were also yelling out taunts. That's social mass warrior spew. Now, despite shooting this at the arcade itself, I took care not to mention the place I filmed the video to prevent any thoughts of endorsement or participation. The reason why my April Fool's prank worked is people were tired of the face burqas and tired of the cruelty people show when they demand you wear them despite hard evidence proving they did nothing to slow the spread of the virus and may have actually accelerated the spread. Now, with most activities being shuttered and my other hobby of covering wrestling shows greatly reduced, I decided to greatly increase my time at the Galloping Ghost Arcade, and I could make some major headway in score chasing and take on new games instead of constantly having to defend scores. With so many of the regulars away, if I was going to make a run for the belt, this was my best opportunity to make it happen. Yes, some folks thought it was heresy to say my name and the Gamer of the Year in the same sentence, and I wasn't even close to being a contender. The fortunate thing is, the title is not a popularity contest, it's more merit-based, and thank goodness I never ever win popularity contests, and it shouldn't even be one. Since I was expanding on chasing scores, I began moving up the rankings on arcade. My position in the top 10 has pretty much stayed between 7 to 10 once reaching that group of players. The way arcade computes the player rankings is the person who has the house high gets the entire token count added to his total. So if you have the high on the game with 20 tokens, you get 20. If it's like just one, you only get one. The Ghost Rider, which is what I refer to as the person at the top of the leaderboard, has 140 house highs and world records. That would be Pete Hahn. He's held this position for about 6 years now. The top 5 in order are Pete Hahn, Andrew Wasco, Jamie Tibbetts, Mossy Segovian, and Chris Blackie. Except for number 4 and 5 flip-flopping a few times, that's pretty much stayed the same. The next 5 saw the most shuffling. But November 2020, for the first time, I rose up to 6th place, leapfrogging over 3 former Gamers of the Year and getting 50 house highs. I would get knocked down, but I'd get back up to number 6 a few more times. When the regulars made their returns, 24 scores were taken in late April, May, in what was dubbed Operation Stephen Lucas. From my peak at number 6, and I was knocked all the way down to number 14. Truth be told, it was absolutely brutal and demoralizing. It really made me question if I could still win Gamer of the Year. Then in trying to recover some of the losses, I was hitting a brick wall. I had to figure out why I wasn't digging out of the hole I'd been pushed into and come up with a new game plan with 4 months to go. I kept being told I had to beat a certain past Gamer of the Year, Andrew, in order for me to get the title myself. I didn't believe that from the get-go, because when Andrew won Gamer of the Year in 2019, he had not yet cracked the top 10 yet. He was sitting at number 12 in late July 2019 and did not participate in that year's T20 tournament. Nonetheless, he was my main rival in the 2021 season. But if I was battling one gamer, that'd be one thing. But battling several gamers at the same time? I guess I was put through the ringer as to how I would hold up with so many against me. So what game plan did I have to turn to recover from the onslaught? There was a lot of grumblings over Arcade's metric to calculate ratings. Okay, fine, it's a horrible metric. But until it's changed to something else, that's the one we have to work with. I began doing research, digging through scores, switched up on what titles I sought to reclaim, slowly began climbing back into the top 10. But I needed to look at another metric, and that metric was overall tokens earned at a particular arcade. So if you put in a score, you earn a percentage of tokens from how far you are from the house high. So if there's 100 scores on a game, and you get 8% of the house high, you get 80 tokens. So to sum up all the games, you have to put a score in. Then you get a different picture. In April of 2021, the Ghost Rider on that metric was James White at number 1 with over 8,000 tokens. 6,200 for Tibbetts for second place. Third, Mossy's at 5,400. Fourth, Matt Walters at 5,300. Pete Gores, 4,400 for fifth. Sixth place, Brent Hart, 4,300. Myself, number 7 at 4,000. Yes, James White, you can see why he scored Gamer of the Decade being number 1 on that chart. But what was surprising was 2 individuals behind. Pete Hahn at 3,400 and Andrew at 3,300. So I was ahead of Andrew on a metric to strengthen my case. I put together a list of games and score targets to get a healthy number of tokens, preferably double digits, and got to work. I needed to move up a couple spots on that list and get to number 5. After a number of visits, I made it up there. I got into a decent position right before T20. So the final weekend before GGA anniversary celebration, had to make a decent showing as the defending champion. Well, I did not believe I would repeat as the champion. I would like to demonstrate I was still a huge threat, as with many past T20s, I would get myself qualified on day 1 and to proceed to grind on both tournaments and see where I needed to put my remaining time on Sunday. Every year, it's been the side tournaments, and I would seemingly finish second every time. This tournament turned out to be all rotary stick games. Those are more tedious to play, as you're having to spin the stick while pushing in a direction. But despite these not being my wheelhouse, I made a run and did what I could to run up the scores on those expecting someone to come after me. And yes, wouldn't you know it, Jamie Tibbetts, who has in multiple years placed third and took the side tourney, went on the attack, being a score, then another, then I had to answer. Midnight Resistance, Gondomania, Bermuda Triangle, and Victory Road were picked off one by one. But strangely, he left Heavy Barrel without a score and did not qualify. Because Martin Berard was not there this year, he had a chance to take second place overall, but found himself in a dogfight with newcomer John Limey in the last few hours, where he is forced to defend his spot and not finish third a fifth time in a row. However, Limey proved he was a force to be reckoned with and pulled out second place by a point. Ironically, Tibbetts would have won the same amount of money taking third and the side tourney as the second place finish. Now, my decision to go all in the side tourney paid off finally, as anyone who is going after Game of the Year is vitally important to get the last word. Winning the side tourney was a good last word to get, and thus, one more week to go. Anniversary finally came. Rode up to Brookfield, proceeded to take one last score in the hours before the ceremonies commenced. Yes, I went in knowing it wasn't a lock, but felt certain on what everyone's chances of winning were. I put Andrew at 40%, my chances at 30%, the defending champ Pete Hahn at 15%, James White at 10%, Mossy's at 5%. Being the 10th anniversary, there was a lot to cover before the announcement of the new Gamer of the Year was made. Doc Mack would cover a litany of things that would have gone on during the year and what his deciding factor was in picking the winner. And as you can see, I was chosen. At 50 years old, the best birthday present ever. As the Gamer of the Year, which game would I select for the floor? And my choice was inspired by an arcade restore series on John's Arcade. This game's profile was raised up as the multi-part series on restoring the cabinet. I chose the underrated Rockola game, Jump Bug. After attending an Ari Lemon concert, who was the first person to play Jason Voorhees, went to bed, and woke up the next morning. The title belt was still in my possession, confirming it was not a dream. There was a film crew on hand shooting a documentary on the new fighting game Dark Presence. As part of the background, they did a shoot of the T20 tournament and did interviews with several of the participants. Of course, they were on hand for the Gamer of the Year ceremony, and I got considerable time in front of the cameras, making it the first time I've been involved in any sort of gaming documentary, and hope to see myself in it when it's all done. Today, as of February 2022, my arcade ranking, I'm sitting at number 10. I would like to move back to number 9. We'll see what happens. Overall token count, I currently stand at over 5,000. GGA keeps teasing a new metric, but it still has not emerged yet. Now I should mention the other things I did to help build my resume on the Gamer of the Year chase, because there's the little aspects that add up. I do add games and locations to Arcade, the site, which is an extensive task as there's thousands of arcades all around the world, and every little bit helps in updating the site. I also did take part in other events held at GGA if I could, even if I wasn't good at the games. I also made a promo for the T20 tournament, as well as donated to the expansion project. I could have also participated in pinball events, but did not. I did, however, play the Monday Mystery Games when I was there on a Monday and helped out with the Arcade Wars. So, the chase for the next Gamer of the Year. From the visible activity, you'd think it was a two-man race between Andrew and Daniel. Andrew definitely wants to repeat as the Gamer of the Year. I believe he's definitely trying to catch Pete Hahn for the unofficial Ghost Rider title, but he's going to have to take a few of his scores to get there. If he manages to displace Hahn, it's pretty much a lock in my view. He did do the T20 and the Pin Expo tournaments. If he would help GGA with the Arcade Wars and goes all the way in taking the current 10X championship cycle and wins that belt, it would fill the other deficiencies in a resume he needs. Placing in the top 3 for T20 or winning the side tournament would be a big help. Giving credit where credit is due, my most bitter rival, Daniel Sam, became one of the few to win 3 different GGA titles and 3-peated the Pin Expo tournament. But the one thing he would have to do before he could win the Gamer of the Year, I have a hard time seeing him do it. And I'll let you guess what that is. However, after capturing the 10X title, he has been absent the past few months, which will hurt his case in my view. Incidentally, he was one of the folks who thought I should not have won this. When John Leibing scored a second place finish in T20, I figured he would be in the mix, but he hasn't been back up until recently. And now, sits at number 14 after someone visiting from Canada knocked down the person that was ahead of him. If Leibing comes back more regularly, he would be just as dangerous as Andrew in taking scores. And man, those light gun games, I've watched him play, his finger speed is insane! Eric O'Brien, visitor from Canada, just rapidly burst on the scene and has taken some big scores in a short amount of time. The only thing holding him back is that he has to fly in from Canada. I would like to see him enter T20. If there's anyone who should have won the Gamer of the Year title by now, it's Mossie's. Sitting at number 4 and 3rd in overall tokens, but he said to me he doesn't think he'd ever win this title. In my view, I think he allows himself to be held back. Sure, he says managing a high school baseball league takes up a lot of time in late spring, summer, but you find a way if you want something bad enough. Then there's the dark horse contenders, which I'm not sure who stands out in that group. Flip Frenzies have been won by someone new almost every time. Arcade Wars haven't got the level of participation I would have expected, so you have to look beyond into arcade advocacy. So what are my current odds on who the next Gamer of the Year will be? Right now, as it stands, Andrew Iwasco I put at 40%, Daniel Sam at 20%, John Lemming at 10%, Pete Hahn at 10%, Monsi's at 5%, Eric O'Brien at 5%, and someone else a combined 10%. Regardless of who is a contender now, if you are wanting to make a serious run for the Gamer of the Year, you better get started because there's about 6 months left. There's 6 months left, a little less than that, before the next one is crowned. It will be almost too late to get into the mix fairly quickly, as those who started early have put together impressive resumes in the first half of the chase. I did almost anything I could to make my case, even if I wasn't a superior player to everyone else. I don't know who will win. I'm happy to have been made the champion for 2021, but you better make your presence felt soon. August 13th, 2022 will be here before you know it. I'm your Galloping Ghost, Gamer of the Year, Stephen Lucas. Thanks for listening. Alright, I do want to mention one other thing. So I have all these arcade games in my basement right now. These are all going to leave the basement. All of them. And where are they going to go? Well, I've had a new garage built, and there's that lawn sticking way over here. But I have a new garage built, and the arcade games are going to go into a special room in the back of the garage, so I have a ground level garage on a ground floor so I can get more arcade games, can get some pinballs, because lugging these up and down stairs, these things weigh a lot. They're not easy to get up and down stairs. And plus, with me being 50 years old, it makes it harder and harder because I'm not a muscular guy. I'm going to need some really strong people to haul these out of here. I'm going to have to partially disassemble them too. I'm going to have to pull the monitors out because that's a large chunk of the weight. Remove anything that's removable just to lighten the weight and getting them up out of the basement and into my new garage. And it's going to be a lot easier to pick up new arcade games, sell old ones, trade them, what have you. So that's it. I'll see you next time.